Okay, welcome to Honey Badger's podcast. I am Badger Boss right here, and joining me here today is Luke Lango.
What's up, guys?
And now we have a few questions from the community, deep burning questions about powerlifting that we're gonna need Luke's, the Nuke, Lango's specialty to answer. Okay, so the first question goes to Shazwan Ilyas, and Shazwan Ilyas, he asked about accessories. He wanted to ask about accessories for squats and deadlifts, because who benches anyway, right? Okay, Luke Lango, go ahead.
Okay, so essentially for accessory work for squat and deadlifts, personally for me, what I find works best for my squat is I like to do different variations, and I like to do a lot of unilateral movements. So I like to do, my main lift is a back squat, but I like to incorporate front squats into my programming, and I like front squatting a lot. So the carryover from front squat to my back squat, the carryover is bigger. So the benefits I gain from doing front squats as compared to any other movement is much higher. So front squats for accessory. Also, I like to do lunges. Lunges is good. I find it helps balance out my legs, okay, in terms of strength and power output. What else? Deadlifts for squats. For deadlifts, I like to do conventional. I'm a sumo lifter, a sumo stance lifter, but I like to do conventional stance in my programming, because it helps to hit muscles on a wider range as compared to sumo. On top of conventional stance, I like to do also block pulls. Block pulls are really great, and deficit deadlifts. So in the squat and deadlift, I usually alternate between these accessory work. The reason why I choose the block pulls and deficits is because for block pulls, I find that in a sumo stance, I can lock out the weight much faster. So doing block pulls help me lock out weights much faster, and it also allows me to overload the weight on the bar. So assuming that my current 1 rep max for sumo deadlift off the floor is 270, my block pull, if it's a 3-inch from the floor, if it's a 3-inch height block, I can pull about 285, 290, okay? And for deficit deadlifts, because I'm someone who's actually naturally weak off the floor when it comes to pulling. So what I do is I create about a 1-inch deficit where I put plates under my feet, and that basically forces me to get lower and recruit much more muscles to produce power to get the weight to go up. So yeah.
Okay, so let's let's open the question to the floor. Since we are on the topic, we might as well just go a little bit deeper into that. Do you guys have any questions about what Luke just mentioned? No, totally. Okay.
All right.
Is there anything else you want to add on to it?
Essentially, accessory works are meant to strengthen your weak points in your lifts. So what works best for me may not necessarily work best for you. So you have to first assess which part of your lift you're actually weak at. If it's a squat, if you're weak at the bottom if you're weak in the bottom, the hole, you have trouble getting out. So maybe something along the lines of a pause squat to actually help you build the time under tension at the bottom would be more beneficial for you. But if you don't have a problem at the bottom of the squat, it's best you focus your time and your energy on implementing accessory work that actually does affect your weakness.
What are the most common mistakes when beginners start to decide on what kind of accessory work to do?
Well, usually they put too much. They put too much accessory work. So they have a main lift, and they could have, what I see commonly is that they probably add like 6 more accessory work, which obviously takes out way too much of their time, and they're focusing their efforts on the accessory work and not perfecting their main lifts. So a rule of thumb is you probably want to have about 2 or 3 accessory work to supplement or complement your weaknesses.
I see. Is there a kind of mental framework where you use to decide what kind of accessory And yeah, we just mentioned about how much, but what kind of accessory work to incorporate? Like, how do you know so Shazwan's questions with regards to squats and deadlifts, right? So how do we know, like, if let's say the biceps are too weak for the deadlift, how do we know that? And what are the other key areas of weaknesses which is very, very common with regards to squats and deadlifts?
What are the common? Can you repeat the question?
What are the common weaknesses that an athlete has with regards to squats and deadlifts, and how do you circumvent that?
Well, to say common, in my experience, when I encounter athletes or clients that have weaknesses in these particular lifts, is generally their posterior or tightness of muscles. Not say weakness, but tightness. Usually, most individuals would like to address the muscle weakness rather than the muscle flexibility or the mobility of their joints and whatnot. So most commonly, people always tend to jump from their fixing one thing to the next problem. You see,
before the problem is actually solved.
Yeah, before the problem is actually solved. So common mistakes, I think, and most common mistakes I see can actually be fixed by proper stretching and proper mobilizing. Okay, but if you ask me about terms of weakness of muscle, you really have to assess the individual and see exactly what part he's lacking. Yeah. Yes, it's very possible to have common problems, but I would have to actually look at the individual to give my input.
So based on your explanation, the key takeaways over here is that weaknesses and mobility has to be addressed on an equally important basis.
Yes.
And another one is assessment. So Luke, do you want to go in a little bit and talk about the importance of doing a thorough assessment on yourself?
Yeah. So basically, before an individual can actually perform, say, the main lifts, right? The squat, the bench, the deadlift, the press, whatsoever, it's important to know how your stance, what works good for you. If you're a high bar squatter, if you're a low bar squatter, essentially, if it's in general, okay, as you say, you're not in powerlifting, right? What is your goal? Okay, you have to really boil it down to the basics. What is your goal? Is your goal to get an aesthetic body, or is your goal to move the most amount of weight? Now, depending on what your goal is, that will decide your future planning, programming, stances, how you approach certain things. Like, for example, if you want to get big quads or big quadriceps, you want big legs, right? So you probably most likely would benefit from a high bar, okay, because they hit your quads much more effectively than a low bar. But if you want to move the most amount of weight, then then you most likely would want to try a low bar, because in terms of leverage wise, low bar squatters move much more weight than high bar squatters.
Right. And finally, since we are on this topic, Luke, do you have any kind of anything at all for the audiences who are listening to this right now? Anything for them that you can help them with regards to assessment? Do you have anything like that you're offering?
Assessment wise, I offer, seeing as how I'm part of the Honey Badgers coaching facility crew, we offer assessments over here. So me personally, I handle a lot of athletes ranging in the powerlifting section. So in terms of assessment wise, I believe that if you guys feel like you have a problem and you want to get yourself checked out, like for example, you feel like there's something wrong with your squat or your bench or your deadlift, you can look for me. I'll put my phone number.
Well, if you want to get in touch with Luke, comment down below, or you can just send us an email. Go to badgerfitness.net and you will be able to see an inquiry form, okay? Alright, so I hope that answers your question, Shazwan Ilyas. And now we're moving on to the next question. So, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, by the way, you guys watching, you guys have anything to add on? No?
How we determine the weight for our accessory work?
Alright, so to repeat the question, Javen asked, how do we determine the weight for accessory work? Expert, let's go.
Okay, so determining the weight for accessory, first of all, you check what your accessory is. If you're, for example, we'll take knee. If I want a front squat, my accessory work is front squat, right? Now, usually if I'm squatting, let's just say 80% for my back squat, right? Let's just say 80%. My front squat would range between somewhere between 50 to 70%. Now, it's not as simple as just putting a random number out there, or random percentage. Percentages of your accessory are just as important as percentages of your main lifts. Because if you increase the percentage of your accessory way more than your percentage of your main lift, then it's a bit, how do I put it? The total volume added up at the end of the day is going to be much higher than what you need in your training. So, how to determine what percentage your accessory should be? You should first look at your overall, I would say poundage volume, weekly volume. For example, if you say you want to accumulate 5,000 kilograms in terms of volume on your back squat, you have to calculate from there.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah. Yes.
Good. Anyone else? No? All right, next question. So, how do you pronounce this? Tilak Bahadur. Question is workout routines, warm-up drills, cool downs, injury prevention fixes, things that actually happen behind the scenes to lift heavier. So, okay. A bit more on injury prevention. Let's not answer this.
Yeah.
Too broad, guys. Guys, when you ask this question, when you ask you a question, make sure it's specific, okay? All right. So, how to increase your bench? Do you want to answer that?
How to increase your bench? Wow, that's so broad.
Let's break it down. Let's break the question down into smaller things. Maybe overcoming bench plateaus.
That's still pretty broad. You have to see like overcoming plateaus in general. You have to see. There's a lot of factors you have to take into consideration, like your training age. How long. So basically, training age, experience. How long have you been doing? What's your frequency of your bench? Where's your bench right now? How much are you lifting right now? And what is your plateau actually at? Like, if for example, what kind of difficulty are you having during your bench? Are you someone who's weak off the chest, or are you someone who's having trouble locking out? So first, before coming out with a program to like break past your plateau, it's important to understand why you are plateauing. For all you know, it could not be a technique issue, or it could be just a programming issue.
Yeah.
It could also perhaps it could just be a programming issue. Perhaps you're just not eating right. It's just so many factors. You're not sleeping enough. If you're someone who's like on a desk job, you work a 9 to 5 desk job, you're sitting all the time. You get like 4 hours of sleep. So it's multiple factors that contribute to plateaus. Alright, but if you're someone who has 8 hours sleep, you have an active lifestyle, and that helps us narrow it down to more specific things we can actually fix. So sometimes solving a problem isn't as easy as just yes and no, and this and that. It's more of seeing the bigger picture.
Yep. So first, analyze first.
Yes.
Analyze what is actually holding you back. So now that we are on this topic, what are the most common things that hold people back from strength increments that you've seen based on your experiences?
So what holds people back from their strength increments?
Yeah, what makes people plateau? Most common mistakes.
If you ask me, in my personal opinion, I think they try too much. Some people just want to add so much weight so fast that they do too much things at one go. As an example, just now adding too much accessories, or trying to chase unrealistic numbers in a very unrealistic time frame. So again, these kind of factors will stall your weight increments. So increasing load on the bar, it has to be progressive. It has to be progressive. Even if it's a small amount, it is still progressive. So as long as you're progressive in making increments properly, that's when your strength will grow. But if you're someone who is always constantly fluctuating between, like, in the first week you add say 5 kilos onto your bench, and then the second week you add 10 kilos, and then the third week you start adding 15 kilos, your bench is not going to go up, it's just going to go down, right? So it's more long-term goal than it is a short-term goal.
How did that go down? Just for the benefit of the audience, why would it go down?
Okay, so basically, when you make such huge increments in your lifting, in your lifts, your body cannot, your body's CNS, which is the central nervous system, cannot handle the stress that you're actually putting on your body, because it's not progressive, it's just sudden. So like anything, if you suddenly introduce something that is not at all familiar with your body, it won't accept, it won't adapt. So once it won't accept, it won't adapt, the worst case scenario is that you injure yourself, right? Worst case scenario. Best case scenario, you make maybe like a very, very small increment in your bench as compared to what you could have made if you had done things properly. Yeah.
Questions?
In terms of locking up, what are the minor adjustments that we can make to make it more stable, that we can finish in a very strong push?
Can you repeat the question again?
I find it sometimes when I'm locking up, I find the last push a bit hard.
Right.
So what are the ways which I can correct it so that I can lock up?
Okay, so a question from the audience is, how do you lock out better? Is that brilliant? Okay, what are the things that you can do to improve your lockout? Luke?
Okay, well, that's actually a pretty good question, and a lot of people do struggle with the lockout on the bench. Again, what I find works best for me, and also other lifters which I've spoken to, more experienced, more senior lifters, is that they strengthen their triceps. Because, okay, the tricep is the primary muscle for elbow extension, right? So in the pressing movement, your elbows are essentially locking out. By strengthening the smaller muscle groups, like your tricep, it will actually contribute to your pressing power, right? So, while yes, the chest muscle is the much more bigger muscle in play, however, with a stronger, smaller muscle assisting the big muscles, locking out will become much easier to you. So these are one of the many very important examples of why accessory work is essential to helping out weaknesses. So, for example, you said that your weakness was locking out. Incorporating something like a tricep extension, a single arm dumbbell extension, all these accessory works contribute to your main lifts. So yeah.
Right. So work on your compound, but don't neglect your isolations.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Work on your compound, don't neglect your isolations. Okay, cool. So anyone else? No?
I think we got time for just one more question.
Okay, we got time for just one more question. So, Aaron asked, how to deal with haters on Instagram and Facebook? All you haters watching right now, I love you.
How to deal with haters on Instagram and Facebook? Simple. I just don't deal with them. You know, I do my thing. They do their own thing. It doesn't really bother me. You know, people can keep hating all they want, but it's not really gonna affect me. Their opinions of what I do don't really matter.
It's their job, man.
Yeah.
It's their job. Haters, the only thing, their job is their duty, obligation, and responsibility to hate on others and to complain. Right. So keep complaining. We love you anyway. So that's all for today's question. So for today's questions and this podcast, and I hope you guys watching got enough value out of it. Actually, there's never gonna be enough value, right? But we're gonna come back with more value, more information for you to help you with your fitness journey. Okay, so that's all. Thanks again for coming, Luke.
Thank you for having me.
Right.